Hello, my name's Chris Payton, and I'm a genealogist who works in Ayrshire in Scotland, and I'm also the author of Tracing Your Scottish Ancestry Through Church and State Records, which is available from Pen and Sword Limited. Basically, what I wanted to do within this short video was just to provide an overview of what the book contains and how it might help with your research. It's structured over 8 chapters, and the first chapter is entitled Research Resources and very much provides an overview of the repositories that exist within the country that can help with your research. So that's everything from the National Records of Scotland, our National Archive, the Scotland's People's Centre, the Court of the Lord Lion, the National Library, and so on. Also local archives, and then some of the key online players as well within the family history world, some of which are based in Scotland and Scottish to the core, and some of which are larger, maybe based overseas or around the world, but which contain a large amount of Scottish content. So it's to provide an overview really of where records might be held. Then from chapter 2 onwards, I start to look in more detail at the kinds of records that exist, but also the raison d'etre behind those records. So, for example, chapter 2 looks at civil registration, and from 1855 onwards, the state in Scotland had to record all births, marriages, and deaths, but also other events, including divorces from a later period. There was a register of adoptions and other records as well. What I tried to do within this particular chapter is not just to say where the records are held online or where they're held across the country, but also to talk about what they contain and the very reason behind why such records existed. And also, what the legal underpinning for all those records were. What did a registrar have to include when documenting such resources? But also, what was the responsibility of the parents? And there are some categories in here that you may not be so familiar with that the state had to manage as well. For example, vaccination is something that the state looked over for a good part of 80 years. Yeah. So I talk a bit about the types of records that exist, the types of institutions that are documented, marriages and births and deaths, marriages being a good one, because as well as regular marriage, you also had irregular marriage, which was very different here compared to the rest of the UK. Then from chapter 3, I look at the Church of Scotland, provide a brief history of the Church of Scotland. Very useful from a genealogical point of view. They had some fun and games in the Kirk, they really did. But then to look at the types of records that the church produced, but also topics within that, things like naming patterns and what happened when a child was a foundling, or if a child was stillborn, how was that covered by the church? So traditions and sort of what was recorded, what was not recorded. Then from chapter 4, I look at other churches, because the Church of Scotland was the main player in town, but by no means the only player in town. There were various branches that split off from the Kirk. There were other non-conforming religions that came to Scotland to come and play. There was also the Roman Catholic Church, which is a massive player in the country today. So a lot of records in addition to the Church of Scotland records that can assist with your research. Then chapters 5, 6 and 7 look respectively at records identifying where people were within the community. So that's census records, electoral registers, valuation rolls, that kind of thing. But also land tenure, the particular forms of land tenure in Scotland, including feudalism, which wasn't abolished until 2004, believe it or not. And in chapter 7 in particular, I look at inheritance and the various different ways that a estate could be conveyed after somebody had died. Again, very different to the rest of the UK. Scotland has been part of the UK since 1707, but genealogically it has always remained independent in terms of the record keeping and the way that things are done here. It's very, very different to England, Wales and Ireland and Northern Ireland today. Then the final chapter I look at is law and order, covering a range of issues, including what Scots law actually is, the types of courts that you'll find in Scotland, but also other issues such as the trading corporations and how they operated within the royal boroughs across the country, the records of heraldry from the court of the Lord Lion, police records, records of transportation, a whole heap of stuff to do with sort of court records, if you like. So this book is very much a kind of background guide to what it is you're actually looking at. You go onto Scotland's People and you find a record of a birth, that's great. But what is it actually telling you in addition to somebody's name or when they were born? It's telling you a lot more than you might be familiar with. And so I kind of decode everything really and try to help you really bring out the very best of these records. So this book, Tracing Your Scottish Ancestry Through Church and State Records, is available through Pen and Sword. You'll also find it through various other distributors, but I hope that it will help with your research and maybe help you get to the next level with your Caledonian pursuits. Thanks very much.